I love you. You love me. Chung!
The end of the world will surely come, in Bromley South or Orpington. Morning in the suburbs, sunlight thrown like a blanket over pink and white vistas, villas detached and undetached, islanded with flowering cherry, stone ravens guard the gate posts, the roof left unguarded, each man's garden a province unto itself, linked only by bird song and the tasteful cooing of doves in hedges. The earth moves sudden. Tiny snowstorms of cherry blossom. A black cat runs apprehensive. Flocks of starlings startled from bushes. Slow-growing crescendo of crushing picture windows. Gardens uprooted, blown, pink and white, sky high. Frozen agonies of begonias, held for a moment like a blurred Polaroid. Lawns flung like carpets. Golf clubs, potting sheds, wheeled shopping baskets, hurled into orbit. Deep freezers burst open, pre-packaged meals spilling everywhere, invitations to whist drives, coffee mornings, letters to long-haired sons at campus universities never to be delivered, pinboards, posters of Che Guevara, stereo systems, continental quilts, rows of neat lettuces, blameless chihuahuas, au pair girls still wet from dreams of Italian waiters, mothers-in-law, bullfight trophies, sensible wooden toys, world helpless in a vortex, rockeries like asteroids, blizzards of apple blossom against the April sunlight. A solitary picnicker, sitting on a breakwater above the red flint-strewn beach, hears a distant thunder as cliff tops crumble, looks up from the light scumbling the silver water, to see the horizon catch fire. Showers of small stones, smell of uprooted samphire, the last slice of ham, a packet of biscuits, the small black notebook slip away unseen as the concrete rears vertical. His ears last echo the cries of lost seabirds. One drifting pink petal catches the dying sunlight.
We've got to forget about being boring about the bomb. We've got to get onto it the whole time, I think, because nothing's more important. I was reading a book about survival and reading the headings. Quote, clothing, cooking equipment, food, furniture, hygiene, lighting, medical, shrouds, unquote. What? Shrouds. Quote, several large, strong black plastic bags and a reel of 2-inch or wider adhesive tape can make adequate airtight containers for deceased persons until the situation permits burial. Unquote. No. I will not put my lovely wife into a large, strong, black plastic bag. No. I will not put my lovely children into large, strong, black plastic bags. No. I will not put my lovely dog or my lovely cats into large, strong, black plastic bags. I will embrace them all until I am filled by their radiation. Then I will carry them one by one through the black landscape and lay them gently at the concrete door of the concrete block where the colonels and the chief detectives and the MPs and the regional commissioners are biding their time. And then I'll lie down with my wife and children, and my dog, and my cats. And we will wait for the door to open.
I think this is a problem that we all face now, how to confront this issue. But I do believe that the power of words, of language, is greater than the destructive power of the weapons themselves. Now I'll read a love poem, just for a change, called Sometimes Love. Sometimes loving is a claw in the desert, machinery of shells, looking for a promise of water. Sometimes loving is the word that freezes a man and a woman forever, joined at the root. Sometimes loving is too near, like bright beetles through the eye of a snake. Sometimes loving speaks like a foreigner, and the sound is like a subterranean tournament. Sometimes loving is an arrangement of chairs, the judge's leather and dark velvet for drowning in. Sometimes loving falls off the edge of the page into fingers and hands that cannot speak of it.
I've got a poem about what it is to be a writer. And if I read this, it's a solo reading, I tend to think it looks as though I've got a chip on my shoulder, but you've seen and will see so many writers tonight. You must realize that all writers are the same in every possible respect, quite indistinguishable one from another. We all get letters. Dear Mr. Fisher, recently, while studying selections from a modern anthology with one of my GCE groups, I came across your interestingly titled Starting to Make a Tree. After the discussion, I felt strongly you were definitely holding something back in this poem, though I can't quite reach it. Are you often in Rugby? If you are, perhaps we could meet, and I could try at least to explain. Cordially, Avis Tree. P.S. Should we arrange a rendezvous, I'm afraid I wouldn't know who to look out for, as I've never unfortunately seen your photograph. But I notice you were born in 1930, the same year as Ted Hughes. Would I be right in expecting you to resemble him, more or less? Dear Miss Tree, it's true I'm in Rugby quite often, but the train goes through without stopping. Could you fancy standing outside the up refreshment room a few times so that I could learn to recognize you? If you could just get hold of my 4 books and wave them, then I'd know it was you. As for my own appearance, I suppose it inclines more to the Philip Larkin side of Ted Hughes's looks. See if you think so as I go by.
When I was a child, running close to the ground, smelling of earth and grass, I caught the sky in my eye, held the land in my hand. When I was a child, with legs quick and nimble, leaping ditches, scratched by bramble, I flew with time, drew the whole of summer in one breath, knew no time but mine. When I was a child, stained purple with berries, lying deep in shady grasses, standing still in noonday sun, I heard the stilled woods speak, felt summer's wing touch my cheek.
We didn't know we had a third parent, a godfather at every baby's christening, henceforth a progenitor. All seemed as the baby books foretold. Youth seemed just as bright and hopeless as ever. The future was our strip, tragicomic, our own. We lost our books, funked games, ate buns, dodged milk, observed our strange and sweating teachers. We grew, how we loved cinemas and Sinatra, and I mourned Alma Cogan's floating sequins whose singing died of cancer. For me, Pat Boone filled his letters with golden sands. We looked on the face of grace and turned with the right clock right round to clever and increasing rock. Ultimate Elvis, great seal, who bulged to babies in the swimming aisles and back again round the clock. We wanted fusion, Our fingers tried out in landscapes, rural, urban, or renewed, derelict, or in old cars, or if richer and travelled, in vineyards by uncomfortable moonlight. These were our first tries. Behind them, fission, someone else's vision. This was the major parturition, part secret, part public, the black and grey penises of the bomb, parthenogenesis of the male, breeding and breeding its own, another, bigger, more swollen, spunkier, fuller of particles, and better at achieving coverage from the bowels of the earth to the ionosphere and higher, our leaders, high flyers.
Trees are mute companions, looming through the winter mist from the side of the road, lit for a moment in passing by the car's headlamps, ash and oak, chestnut and yew. Witnesses, huge, mild beings who suffer the consequence of sharing our planet and cannot move away from any evil we subject them to, whose silent absolution hides the scars of our sins, who always forgive, yet still assume the attributes of judges, not victims.
Counting song. I could accompany it, but it looks stupid, you know, you run over there and play a few notes and run back here. Let me count your buttons, dear. 1, 2, 3. Let me count your buttons, dear. 4, 5, 6. Stay your hand, stay your hand. Do not count my buttons. Stay your hand, stay your hand. Keep your hand away. Let me count your fingers, dear. 1, 2, 3. Let me count your fingers, dear. 4, 5, 6. Let me count your fingers, dear. 1, 2, 3. Let me count your fingers, dear. 4, 5, 6. You've a finger extra? Well, I'll be damned. Nobody asked you to count them. All you do is count. Yes, I am a mutant. 1, 2, 3. I developed a taste for nuclear waste. 4, 5, 6. Thank you.
I like to satirise about Hampstead, so don't be offended if there's any good Christians in the audience. It's Hampstead by night. It's a wee bit fierce. A comfortable little suburb north of London with its wooded heath, where queers and heteros nest at night, and little girls in mini skirts, boys with long hair and pockets full of French letters, preparing for a night's fucking, pubs flowing with artists, conversing about their masterpieces not yet on canvas, playwrights with introductions to their latest play that they plan to write in their bed-sitters, writers with unfinished novels, poets reciting their newest poems that only find a hearing in the Roslyn Arms or Leonley's parlour in Devonshire Howe, middle-class civil servants of duty, dressed in jeans for their weekend's rest, middle-class ladies hoping for parties, and men with big pricks, public schoolboys with effeminate looks, hoping to win the hearts of butcher boys of Islington and Camden, while the comfortable bourgeoisie hide in their castles on top of the hill, and the rest of the bourgeoisie amuse themselves in the village 2 stops from Camden town.
This is a poem about office life. To anyone who's been in an office, it won't come as a surprise, because it's about the rather pointless flirtations that go on when the boys chat up the girls. Office friendships. Eve is madly in love with Hugh, and Hugh is keen on Jim. Charles is in love with very few, and few are in love with him. Maura sits typing notes of love with romantic pianist's fingers. Dick turns his eyes to the heavens above, where Fran's divine perfume lingers. Nicky is rolling eyes and tits and flaunting her wiggly walk. Everybody is thrilled to bits by Clive's suggestive talk. Sex suppressed will go berserk, but it keeps us all alive. It's a wonderful change from wives and work, and it ends at 5:30.
A poem called Interruption at the Opera House. At the very beginning of an important symphony, while the rich and famous were settling into their quietly expensive boxes, a man came crashing through the crowd, carrying in his hand a cage in which the rightful owner of the music sat, yellow and tiny and very poor, and taking on to the rostrum this rather timid bird, he turned up the microphone and it sang. A very original beginning to the evening, murmured the crowds, quietly fidgeting with the programs to find the significance of the intrusion. Meanwhile, at the box office, the organisers of the evening were arranging to evict a forceful intruder, whereas the attendants, poor and gathered in the nearby slums at little expense, went rushing down the aisles to do their job. They heard above the coughing and irritable rattle of jewels a sound that filled their heads with light, and from somewhere inside them there bubbled up a stream, and there came a breeze on which the youth was carried. How sweetly that bird sang. Although soon the fair-up crowd were leaving their boxes and in confusion were winding their way home, still the attendants sat in the aisles, and some, so delighted at what they heard, rushed out to call their families and friends. And the children came, sleepy, for it was late in the evening, and they hardly knew if they'd done with dreaming or had begun again. In all the tenement blocks the lights were clicking on, and the rightful owner of the music, tiny but no longer timid, sang for the rightful owners of the song. Thank you.
This is a song I wrote with Ian Lynn. It's called In the Later Days of Time, and it's a post-nuclear song. Out of the wilderness we will walk slowly. The night will drag itself with wounds in its side. Under the broken sky, once white and fleecy, the ones who made it run will be left behind. Planes we used to believe in, they will fall without pain, fading slowly into the crazy rain. When the green goes wrong with the garden, that's when things they have to get harder. In the later days, later ways, later days of time.
I'm going to read one poem by John Donne. As I understand it, the poem is about the death of love, absence, and desolation, and I felt it was curiously appropriate to the subject tonight. A nocturnal upon St. Lucy's Day, being the shortest day. It is the year's midnight, and it is the day's, Lucy's, whose scarce 7 hours herself unmasks. The sun is spent, and now his flasks send forth light squibs, no constant rays. The world's whole sap is sunk. The general balm the hydroptic earth hath drunk, whither, as to the bed's feet, life is shrunk, dead and interred. Yet all these seem to laugh compared with me, who am their epitaph. All others from all things draw all that's good, life, soul, form, spirit, whence they being have. I, by love's limbeck, am the grave of all that's nothing. I should prefer, if I were any beast, some ends, some means. Yea, plants, yea, stones, detest and love. All some properties invest. If I an ordinary nothing were, as shadow, a light and body must be here. But I am none, nor will my sun renew. You lovers, for whose sake the lesser sun at this time to the goat is run to fetch new lust and give it you, enjoy your summer all. Since she enjoys her long night's festival, let me prepare towards her, and let me call this hour her vigil and her eve, since this, both the years and the days, deep midnight is.
I always feel a bit guilty in a way because on these occasions, because it sounds like you're anti-progress, you know. It's not that. I mean, I do believe in the future. I do believe there is a future. So I thought I'd read you a science fiction poem. Warm your feet at the sunset before we go to bed. Read your book by the light of Orion with Sirius guarding your head. Then reach out and switch off the planets. We'll watch them go out one by one. You kiss me and tell me you love me by the light of the last setting sun. We'll both be up early tomorrow. A new universe has begun.
Dancing in the mines tonight along the sunlit shafts. It reminds me of my last head. And now I sleep with constant sprite and thousands on a raft. Thousands on a raft. Into the future years, and all I saw was graft. I think it was from town to town. So now I'm living on the road with thousands on a raft, thousands on a raft. Become a van.
10 years. I spent 10 years at the conservatoire learning how to listen. After graduating with an A+, I gave several concerts sitting on a chair listening to restive audiences. Eventually, they started bringing instruments and went home after, thrilled with the quality of my reception.